Before I get into what I think about the big beautiful bill, I want to give a little bit of an update for people who may watch my channel about what's going on in my personal life. Um, so it's been hard to try to find a place to live um, in the city I'm currently at. Um, I think that it's kind of like a shady town. So I think that landlords have been screwed over a lot by people. That's why I see a lot of places that don't allow pets. They outright just don't allow them, and they require a high credit score. And it's like, yeah, my credit score took a hit because I consolidated my debt. I made a mistake, but I don't want to live in a bad part of town. I don't want to deal with those type of people that gonna get on my business, mess with me. I don't want to hear like thumping, dumb ghetto rap music. It's just the most annoying thing to me. And for people like, oh, they're racist. Like it's every race has ghetto people. So like, yeah, you can miss me with that bullshit. It's just degeneracy. That's what it is, degenerates. So yeah, it's really hard to find a place to live in the town I'm currently at. So I decided I have a friend that lives in a smaller community, which is absolutely an amazing place I want to live. It's a very small place. It's a very small place, very quiet community, which I would rather live than where I'm at currently. It's been really trying living in my mom's basement for basically a little over a month. And it's been frustrating because I've had a job within 6 hours of being here. I drove here straight through from Detroit area, Monroe, Michigan. I'm not gonna let everybody know where I'm at, but it took I started out around 12 and I got here around 12 p.m. and I got here around 2:30 in the morning, and I drove straight through. I can only go 55 because I was towing my vehicle, so it took a little bit longer. Anyway, I had an interview set up, which they basically emailed me on my way here that day and said I had an interview for the next morning at 8 o'clock, which I never had anything like that. It's usually like, in a couple of days you set up an interview, or they usually like they text you and stuff. But yeah, I showed up in sweatpants, and I was thinking about not even going because I was tired, but I was up anyway. I woke up early with everybody and I went to the interview, and I nailed the interview. Like, I crushed the interview. And he hired me right on the spot. That's another thing that, places typically don't do. They don't hire you right on the spot. This is the second time that's happened to me, where I think that's the second time where I just got hired right on the spot. And it's a pretty cool feeling. Especially like since I didn't have a job for like 3 months in Michigan. So, because there wasn't anything really there. I talk about it extensively on videos in the past if you really care to understand about the journey I just went through. Anyway, so yeah, I showed up in sweatpants. I got the job right away. I've had a job since I got here basically, I think on the 30th of April. And I had a job 6 hours of being here, so it was pretty crazy thing. I'm going uphill right now, so might be a little bit out of breath, a little bit out of shape. But I love my schedule. The job isn't too bad. It's pretty cool. learning a lot of different things. And my point is, I got approved for a house, a 3-bedroom house. Everything's set. The owner approved me. They're drawing up the lease agreement right now. And you know, I'm pretty excited for that. Having a 3-bedroom house, renting a 3-bedroom house in a community with a small community, tight-knit community, is actually a very peaceful place. Exactly what I want. And maybe I'll stop with the whole nonsense of always trying to move somewhere else. Maybe it'll be home for the rest of my life. Not that house, but that community. You know, maybe in the future I'll end up buying a house. Who knows? But, like, my whole thought process was move here where I'm at in this town, this city, and you know, in a couple of years probably leave anyway. So, you know, but the thing is, I didn't want to commute. I gotta commute. Not too thrilled about commuting, but you know, it's not too bad. The traffic isn't gonna be bad. And with my schedule, I only have to go to work 7 days every 2 weeks because I work 12 hours. It's such a beautiful schedule. I don't have to work 5 days straight. The most days I work in a row is 3. And I still come out with 84 hours for 2 weeks. So it's a good, I'm in a really good position, and I feel like I'm in a way stronger position than I was in Michigan. I'm around people who are like-minded, more like-minded than me, than Michigan folks, because they're more left-leaning people, and I would be considered right-wing. I don't label myself. It's just right now I get along better with right-wingers because they just have more logic and they make more sense. I know people are, oh, they're political. Listen, man, like, that's a part of life now. Politics is a part of life. So, I don't know what to tell you. So anyway, so I haven't signed the lease yet. It's being created. She's gonna send it over, and I'm not counting my chickens before they hatch. I've learned my lesson with that. So I'm not until I actually get signed on the dotted line, like I finally, because I've been having a lot of stress of, man, am I stuck at my mom's house? I have the money, I got a job, like there's no reason, and I don't need to be living in a crappy part of town where I have to worry about getting into fights because people messing with me or trying to steal from me. I don't want to deal with that. I want to stay away from the riffraff. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I try to do the right thing. I want to be around other people that want to do the right thing. So, that's that. And yeah, like if I do get this place, it's $1,200 a month for a 3-bedroom place, 2-bathroom. I mean, I was paying almost, if I would have kept my apartment signed another year lease, I would have had to pay $965 for a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom place, and I was on the 3rd story. So yeah, and the job that I had before in Michigan, I absolutely hated. I wasn't moving up, and in fact they're about to open up the AI facility, which is gonna displace people of their current jobs and move them over into what would have been my department if I still was there, pushing me further down the totem pole. And management has enough management, and they weren't even looking in my direction anyway. I'm not an ass kisser, you know what I mean? So I didn't kiss nobody's ass when it was a job I used to work. There was no future there for me. That's what it felt like. Like I'm just going through the motions. It feels like I might actually have potential for a future here. I might at some point be able to thrive. You know, I was making around 22, 23 an hour in Michigan, and the standard of living is cheaper here in Missouri. And I make around 20.80 an hour. So I think, you know, I don't have to work as hard. I don't have to stand all day, which is a huge thing for me. It's not that I want to be like sitting down all day and doing nothing completely, but at this point I've standed most of my working career just standing, and it's hurt my feet. I think it's contributed to my plantar fasciitis. So, and I don't have to exert myself as much. I like my job, you know what I mean? There's a lot of room for me to learn things. That's what I like. But I'm pretty excited. Hopefully things continue to go well, especially me getting this place, because you know, I'm grateful for where we're at right now, because it's better than living on the streets. But there's just too many people in the house, you know what I mean? And it's just like I'm a 45-year-old man, you know, like I've always viewed like moving back in with my mom when I figured this out and she was cool with it a couple months ago as a temporary thing, not something that's just going to be like years. It was just like, well, let me move there so I have a place to stay, so I can get myself established, get a job, and honestly, like my job, hopefully nothing bad happens and I lose it. I mean, if I lose it, I feel like I can pivot to something else, but I think it's a great job with the economy kind of being like up in the air. If we're gonna hit a recession, I think it's a recession-proof type of job, since I work with food. So I'm confident in that area. I just, you know, need to just keep plugging away, and I've done pretty good. Like honestly, I've been picking up things pretty quickly, I think. So much so where on my shift, we're supposed to have a supervisor, me, and 2 other people. Well, since I've worked there, it's only been the supervisor and 1 other person, which the other person is basically a lead and he knows the stuff really well. But, you know, he didn't feel well, so he wasn't there, so it's just me and the supervisor. And thankfully nothing drastically bad happened last night. It was pretty easy, pretty chill, pretty chill night compared to the rest of the weekend. But I was actually left there by myself, in charge of the plant. It's like, I was worried if something like a catastrophe happened, but it wasn't that long. It was only like 20 minutes, but still, I've only been there a month, so it felt pretty cool that I was trusted. They trusted me enough. They felt confident with me enough to leave me by myself, even if it was only for 20 minutes to the other shift. So like, it felt pretty good to have that, like, you know, that type of trust in me, to have that tremendous responsibility. When apparently we make about $10,000 an hour, so I think it's when we generate like probably like from here, from what I heard, like $120,000 a shift. A shift is 12 hours. So to have that type of responsibility on me, you know, it was pretty cool. I'm glad nothing bad happened, because I don't know how I would have. I wouldn't have freaked out, but you know, like, what do I do? But you know, they would communicated with me, and something really bad happened. somebody would have came in. But it was pretty cool. Anyway, so I feel optimistic. The big thing is my car holding up. I'm worried about my car, just the transmission. The car holding up, getting me back and forth to work. And at this point, me getting my place for me and my son, so we can have our own place and, you know, just our own space. It's nice having our own space, and I appreciate it. God, the Creator, is really doing good for me, right? You know, hopefully nothing bad happens. I feel like I've been through enough bad things. Need good things to happen. I'd like to help other people out if I could. That's what I would like to get, is being able to help other people out instead of, you know, always feeling like the wolves are at the door. One of the greatest expressions I've heard was when Sylvester Stallone was like, when he was thinking about when they were gonna buy the Rocky script off of him, and they said that he couldn't be in the movie. And at that point of his life, he was struggling hard. He said, basically, the wolves were at the door. And he took a risk. He knew he had high value in his hands, even though, you know, at that point, you know, he wasn't well known, doing really well. And I love that story. That Rocky story has always stuck with me. Even though it's like a fake, made-up story, so many people in that position in real life where it feels like I got to get back up. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm getting knocked down. And just that hope that this next turn will be the end, you know, where it'll be to the destination to, I can relax a little bit. You know, good things are happening. And of course, like, life isn't, you know, it's not always going to be good things happening, but when it just feels like you're skating on thin ice, and that's what I feel like I've been doing, is skating on thin ice for the last 20 years of my life. Any big thing that could happen, like, devastates my life at any time, and there's not really a big safety net. And that's what it feels like to be an American, is there isn't really much of a safety net if you make mistakes. You know, you make big mistakes, you especially this day and age, you really can't make mistakes. Especially the youth, they have no room for error. Past generations, even including mine, we had some wiggle room for error. We can make some bigger mistakes and recover. Well, the youth don't really have that type of luxury at this point, and that's what's sad. Now, I want to go into the big, beautiful bill and what I think about it. So, I'm generally speaking against government waste, government printing money, adding more to our national debt. However, if we can leverage that spending into prosperity responsibly, so if you take out debt and you leverage yourself properly, where the outcome, you're basically making it so, making the right choices, so in the future you'll be very prosperous. I don't know what will happen if we pass this big, beautiful bill, putting an extra $5 trillion on our national debt. But what I do know, you know, is it seems like there's a lot of, I don't like, first off, I don't like these bills. I don't like these huge bills. I don't like how, I think they should all be like single item bills. And I honestly think at this point we should just get rid of Congress, and we should just vote on everything ourselves, and if you don't vote, then you can't complain. Because Congress is inept. They don't want to do their job. You know, it's either way, the Republicans or the Democrats at this point. They both come up with these huge bills that probably take months to write, and then they give them 2 days to try to read 5,000 pages, 1,000 pages to try to comprehend it. And it's just like, yeah, you get all the help. You can be like, you can break it up and you can use AI. You can say, hey, like, you read this section, I'll read this section, and we'll get together. But it's like, why does it take, why don't they have like 2 weeks? Like, why don't they have, you know, they have all these breaks. Why don't they have this one of these bills come out right before these vacations, so they have time to digest it a little bit on either side? But you know, they ram it through to put in like things for certain individuals, I guess, so they'll vote for the bill. I don't know, their constituents or whatever. That's how you get all this like government waste, and you're like, what is this? Like, why is this in here? This has nothing to do with anything. But they're trying to get votes from people in Congress, so they're just like, hey, jam this in there, then I'll be yes. And it's just like, you know, it's just so corrupt on both sides. And it's really dumb. Anyway, so like at this point, I look at the dollar and I don't think it is salvageable. I agree with Lynn Alden. She's my favorite economist, and she believes that, this is her saying, what is it? The train, there's no stopping this train. What that means is hyperinflation. There's no stopping it. If you look at, we have 37 trillion in debt right now. We have over 100 trillion or close to it of future liabilities, of which a lot are going to be asking for their stuff pretty soon, with you know, a good portion of that, not all, not most, but a good portion of future liabilities is for the boomers. So imagine our budget going up from 7 trillion right now, close to 7 trillion, because of all the welfare and everything like that, and spending on military. And make it, and it goes up to maybe 10 trillion or 8 trillion, and like, dude, a trillion is a lot of money, man. So even if it only went up like a trillion, that's a huge number. It sounds like, I know it's kind of normalized now. You know, people in the past probably thought of like trillion as how we think about like a quadrillion. Like, you don't really think about quadrillion. You just get to a point where it's like, there's so many zeros. And when you have to use AI to figure out, it's just like so many zeros, this is like, it's too tedious to count it. You know, it needs to be more simple. You shouldn't have to think about, well, a milk is $10. And it's like, yeah, I make $300,000 a year, you know, doing my job with, you know, right now it's like, I make probably 42,000. But you think about that, with hyperinflation, you know, 300,000, like, it's just like, dude, I don't want to think about, it's just too much for me to think about. I don't even want to think about it no more. And I don't think that there's reversing this. I don't think that there is, we can't tax our way out of this. There's no way we can tax our way out of this. And what it does is we're already lowered our credit rating. Moomy credit rating, like we were a AAA, and I guess we're like, was it two, I don't know. Basically, I think we were like an A+, and now we're like an A or A-, or I don't know, B+. I don't know. I just know that we took a credit rating hit. So when they talk about adding to the deficit, but I hear Ron Paul complaining about how much it costs, and it's like, you want to take away securing our border, dude? Like, seriously? No, man. Like, you're not touching that. It would be nice if we didn't have to spend so much on military expenses, if we can just like be the beacon of peace throughout the world, where I would like to have all the nukes in the whole world decommissioned, and us all just to, like, instead of building to blow each other up, with military spending, we kind of like, we build to like prosper everybody, with the military blowing up other, there's a necessity when it comes to self-defense. Like, I have guns. I hope I don't ever have to use my guns. You can, it's not profitable to make weapons and not use them. So that's what the military complex, they create these weapons, and if they don't use them, they go bad. Wow, that's the second dead rat I've seen. Huh. Anyway. So, hopefully it's not a toxic area. Anyway. So, I'm against government spending, inflation. But you know what? Also, we can't raise the taxes on the middle class and the working class at this point. If you do that, if we let the tax breaks expire on the middle and working class, I expect social chaos. People are already have enough time as it is getting by, and basically probably feeling like they're working for nothing. It almost feels like a communist. I think that there's certain sectors of our society that people are in some type of a communist state. The wealthy people obviously are in a different state than us and upper class, but it almost feels like when you're at the bottom at my level, it feels like a communist type of thing, when you're just making enough to pay your bills, and you honestly have to keep cutting to sustain your life. You see a lower lower quality of life. And I understand the more we spend, the more money we print. I know what happens. But I also believe if you can borrow and buy assets, and those assets appreciate, and you maybe still have to work, for me, like, everyone says don't buy assets basically on credit cards. Well, that's basically what I did. I bought assets on credit, and some of those assets have gone up in value because I understand, and it was a mixed bag. I took some of my stimulus and put it in there too, because I realized when the government prints money and they give out free money to people, that money is going to be devalued. So our currency is going to continue to be devalued, but it's going to be devalued anyway. It doesn't matter. There's no stopping this. We are on the road to hyperinflation regardless, in my opinion. And you can look at Lynn Alden, read her book Broken Money. Phenomenal read. I think I'm going to listen to it again. It explains our money situation in a great depth. But you know, it's for me, it's not a matter if we hit hyperinflation, but when. So we can do things to mitigate that or prolong ourselves, you know, kind of like you can prolong yourself from getting dementia by being proactive, you know, and trying to cut costs here and there and whatever, or like trying to do like gaming, like just different things you can do to prevent dementia. But when I'm looking at the dollar and I'm looking at the future of the dollar, I just see Zimbabwe. You know, that's all I see. Like, I'm worth $10 billion in Zimbabwe money. If you want to know how much $10 billion is, I bought that $10 billion bill for 20 bucks like a year ago. Just to say that I'm worth $10 billion. It's just, I just thought it was funny. So, and at some point in our near future, I think within the next 10 years, our dollar is going to do something very similar. So I understand that our economy is completely different than Zimbabwe or Venezuela. They're basically one-trick ponies. But when you see that the petrodollar is gone, so the world isn't trading in the petrodollar with oil, you might see the world go to something like Bitcoin. I don't know. To trade value, because it's a lot easier to transact in Bitcoin than it is in gold. Gold is still, like, I think, my opinion, gold is something that can be used as a utility as well as trade. But like, who uses gold to trade? I mean, not a lot of people are going to accept gold right now. They might in the future, but like, if I wanted to buy a house or whatever and just pay straight up for it, like trade value straight up for it without getting a mortgage, or like, okay, just to say like a vehicle, somebody has like a $2,000 vehicle and I got like a half ounce of gold or whatever, how much, I'm like, here, you're going to take this half, and like, most people are going to be like, no, I want cash. You know what I mean? Not many people are going to take the gold. And the same goes for Bitcoin right now too. People aren't going to take the Bitcoin. But I think that it'll be more normalized, and it just, the whole thing with Bitcoin is like, what is it backed by? Well, it's backed by the miners who make it decentralized and it shows the proof of work. Like, that's what it's backed by. You can take it wherever you want in the world. Now there's a lot of responsibility, but gold, you can only take so much of it with you. You can only take so much cash. Try to go to another country with like a suitcase full of gold or a suitcase full of cash and see what happens. I'm not saying that can't happen with Bitcoin, because they can see, it's a ledger that everyone can see, but it's just easier. Most people don't have the ability to take a bunch of gold with them to another country. Most people, I don't think, have the ability to even go visit another country at this point. People in my sector of the economy, so it doesn't really matter. But with the Big Beautiful Bill, I see a lot of reasonable things in there, a lot of common sense things, and I think that it will be essential to push Trump's policies, the American people elected him to. They elected his policies. They wanted his policies. They don't want communism. They don't want globalism. They elected Trump for a reason. So, pushing that bill is like, I know, oh, you're a hypocrite. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're a hypocrite for for adding more. Like I said, if you can, if you can take the resources, take credit, and like what people do with a mortgage, you know, when they rent out to other people, maybe their mortgage and everything is like, just say like $1,000, you know, $1,000 a month for their mortgage, but they rent it out to somebody for $1,500 a month, so they get $500 profit off of that. So they pay the mortgage at the same time taking a profit as well. Not to say like it's all a profit, because you got maintenance and property taxes and all that, but what I'm saying is like their mortgage is probably a lot cheaper, and they can raise the rent. So, you know, maybe it's $2,000, and they make a substantial, it's worthwhile to do that. So they're leveraging debt, which they have with that's what they do with these mortgages. You leverage debt in a positive manner and make money off of the debt while paying down the debt. So if we can do that in some capacity with the big beautiful bill, well, yeah, we're gonna put on 10 trillion, we're gonna put on 5 trillion over the next, what, I don't know how many years, the next few, like the next 10 years to whatever they're doing. But if we can generate a lot more productivity, creating more income for the government, to pay the debt, to possibly have a surplus, instead of like being in debt every single year and seeing, like, if you look at the debt clock, it's continuously adding up, like very rapidly. Like it's not a standstill. You know, I made this analogy. It's just like, let's just say you bring in $2,000 a month net pay for your bills. Well, if your expenses are like $5,000, how long is that sustainable for your life? The reason what the government can sustain this is because they print out more money, putting a tax, a hidden tax on everybody. And wages don't keep up. They never keep up, because you got to raise the prices on everything else before you can, but the wages are always last. And so that's why people, you know, who are workers, who are locked into contracts like in unions or whatever, you're kind of screwed. I've seen this with the last place I worked, the contract that they were in. It was like, dang, man, like we're on the last, like here's a big raise. Yeah, you get a raise, but like you're gonna be screwed in like 4 years when they keep, like, there's no stopping them printing more money. They essentially have to keep printing money at this point, because they have too much expenses. So they have to keep putting the inflation tax on everybody. That's just my opinion. Maybe you know, I get called stupid all the time on Twitter. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But I do listen to people that are extremely smart, a lot smarter than me, and they explain it a lot better. But it's essentially kicking the can down the road. Like I said, if you can kick the can down the road, and there's like a plan for when the to the point you can't kick the can anymore. If there's a feasible plan so there isn't going to be a catastrophe. You know, the whole like, this is the Democrats, and their idea is just to keep on going with the status quo and think everything's going to be all right, and then we're not going to have increased wars with other countries. And you know, I like the whole idea of America buying Bitcoin. You know what? I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked, and I'm pretty appalled that a lot of countries aren't following the El Salvadorian principle. You know, like their president is an absolute genius. And you know, like, I'm not authoritarian. I'm for freedom. Okay. I'm a big freedom advocate. Enslaved ones. I don't like slavery. I do like order. I don't like chaos. Okay. I don't want to have to continuously watch my back. I like living in a high trust society. I think that most people like living in a high trust society. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe most people don't like, maybe people always want to watch their back. Maybe they don't, you know. I like living in a stable, high trust society. So, if you see what's happening in LA right now, which their leadership is absolute, like, this is how you can tell if the leader is not very responsible. And yes, Trump does do this too. But for the most part, I think that his leadership is pretty spot on. I think the economy was pretty good until COVID hit. But when you look at Kamala Harris, and she was always blaming other people, Gavin Newsom, they're always pointing the finger at other people. They don't accept responsibility for their inept leadership. That tells you all you need to know. And what I basically was trying to get to is the I don't know how to pronounce his name. The president of El Salvador, Abuki or something. I forgot. This guy's an amazing. He needs to be studied and replicated. If I was a small country, I'll do what he's doing. You round up all your gangs. You round them up. Oh, you're affiliated with the gang? You're rounded up. I don't know what to tell you. You're not a part of society anymore. Oh, you're homeless? Well, we can make places for you to go so you can be rehabilitated. Oh, you're a drug addict? Okay, we're gonna do the same for you. You're not gonna live on the streets. You're not gonna poop on the streets. We're not gonna allow that. That is indecent. It's not healthy either. People pooping on the streets is absolutely ridiculous. Do people want California across the world, across America, just defecation and lawlessness? And say you own a store and then you have people sleeping in tents on the sidewalk in front of your store, or being able to let people steal from your store as long as it's under a certain amount, that's okay. Do you really want to live in that situation? Because I don't. Sometimes you need to bring down the hammer and restore order. And that is what Trump is doing. If you see some of these images where this guy's standing on a burnt vehicle waving the Mexican flag, what does that tell you? That tells me that we've been infiltrated. Like, it's an invasion. It's a assault on our country from another country. That's what that tells me. And then when you have the president of that country saying go protest, which I have no problem with peaceful protesting. You shouldn't be standing on freeways what they were doing yesterday or the day before. You shouldn't be burning. You shouldn't break up the sidewalk so you can have projectiles. You shouldn't be being violent. Peaceful protests are cool. Violent ones, that's the problem. And the left are violent. And the only thing they say is January 6th, then January 6th. That's all they say. Like, I don't know how many. It was not an insurrection. It was a few people, basically a handful of people that did bad things. And when you have cops waving people in, you have people who are like, okay, I guess we can go in now. Like, it seems staged. And when you have Nancy Pelosi not having the National Guard there, rejecting that, President Trump said, yeah, have the National Guard, and she rejected it. And then Gavin Newsom is rejecting the National Guard in LA. What does that tell you? They want the chaos. They want the damage. And just like I was tweeting yesterday, I think that him and the mayor of LA, they should be held financially responsible for all the damage. And they need to be locked up. They're corrupt. If you're gonna, these are the same people that did prolonged lockdowns for no reason. These are the same people that did that. So they use their authority to keep people in their houses, but then they don't use their authority to keep people safe from violent terrorists, because that's what they are. They're terrorists. I wish our government recognized Antifa, the Crips, the Bloods, the Muslim Brotherhood, any of these other groups as terrorist organizations, and eradicate them by any means necessary. They are terrorist groups. And it's sad. It's sad. But anyway, so it's the big beautiful bill. It's ugly. It has a lot of spending, but if they, definitely stop getting one thing. If there is tax breaks for the ultra rich, I think that should be stopped immediately. I don't like trickle down economics. I don't think it really produces much. So I don't like being this close. There's rattlesnakes out here. I've never been this far. Anyway, so yeah, I think at this point it sucks, that we had that huge blowout between Trump and Elon over the government spending, which I understand why he's upset, because dude's like busting his butt, donating his time to try to save money, and then you see like something like this go through, completely makes it seem like it was pointless for him to do all that work. And it sucks. But at this point, like I said, I just don't think that we have any other choice, because if you put the taxes back on us, people are just gonna give up. You're gonna see lots of bankruptcies. It's gonna completely annihilate our economy, I think. When you see all these bankruptcies just flood the market on so many different levels. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this video off because it is what it is.